Hello, all you audiophiles. This is the Empirical Audiophile. What we're going to look at today is the DR-1 CD transport. This is Conrad Johnson's transport. Now, I bought this transport back in 1996 to give you an idea of just how old this transport is. And it must weigh, I couldn't find the literature on it, but it must weigh at least anywhere between 18 to 20 pounds. And we're going to take a look inside of it. It still works. And we're going to take a look at how Conrad Johnson made this transport. And I think this will be kind of enlightening because you can compare this transport to the transports that they're making today for CD transport. So here we're looking at the internals of the CD transport. The laser mechanism and the carrier was all made just plastic. It is magnetically held in place by that center hub. It's magnetic. And as you can see, for a transport, it's pretty heavy. It's about 18 to 20 pounds. It's all steel construction, or should I say maybe it's aluminum and steel, because the front plate is an aluminum front plate. It was the only transport that I know of that Conrad Johnson made. And to hook up the transport to the Conrad Johnson Premier 9 DA converter, I used a cable called Illuminati. I bought it in 1996, so that gives you an idea of when this transport was bought. And that was $225 for the cable, and for termination was another $100, so it was $325 for the cable, the Illuminati cable. I also tried the optical cable from Kimber, which would be the AGDL. That was $175, but it did not sound as good, and there's a connection in the back there for the, if you want the optical cable. It wasn't, no, the Illuminati really was a lot better. So that cable I took back, but I use the Illuminati cable now for, 27 years. So you can imagine how those cables and everything that I bought, how the prices went up considerably since the day I bought them. So I thought I'd do this video and show you the internals of the Conrad Johnson. Remember, this was not their top of the line, this Conrad Johnson here. But I think it was the only CD transport that they had made. And what I was going to do is compare it to a transport of today, 27 years newer than this one is. And that transport I'm going to check it out with is the Macintosh MCT 500. And this is the internals of what the Macintosh looks like. Quite bare bones. Well, basically bare bones, just like the Conrad Johnson is. Not much to a transport, really. The separation of the transport from the DA, converter is to get better sound. And is this transport performing up to the standards of what today would be? The Premier 9 that I bought back in 1996 cost about $4,000. And they made two DA converters, Conrad Johnson did. They made the Premier 9, which was the Premier line, and then they made what was called the DR-1 converter. Now that was a cheaper DA converter that Conrad Johnson made. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that was not a tube DA converter, the DR-1 converter. And that was about $2,000. So for twice as much, $4,000, you could get the Premier line that had tubes. I think it has 2 tubes in it, floating chassis, better parts, or you could have bought for about $2,000 the DR-1. And back then in 1996, that was a lot of money. So there was nothing cheap about buying separate, especially when you want to go to high-end equipment. To give you an example of, as I said, for inflation and everything, this is quite expensive. Before I bought this transport, though, I did use a complete DA converter and everything. It was built all in one. I had the carver, and the carver was the SDA 490T. That was a tube, believe it or not, all in one, transport plus DA converter like you could buy today, CD player. And it was decent. And I remember before I got this transport that you're looking at, before I got it, I used the carver transport section because it had a digital out, an RCA jack that you can connect up to an external DA converter. So I used that transport of that carver before I got this in, because it took a while for Conrad Johnson to get these made. And I used that as a transport until I got this one. And I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't hear a big, huge difference using the transport from the carver compared to what you're seeing right here, this transport. But that's just me, and I didn't hear a huge difference. But I was told when I bought all the Conrad Johnson, the Premier 9, that if I want to get the most out of the Premier 9, I needed a good transport. That's why I ordered this one, the CD1 transport that you're looking at, because I was told you really needed one. Now I'm looking at this transport and I see it's pretty well made. Not a lot in here. So what are you really paying for? It almost looks like. The laser mechanism is all plastic. It's not as well made as maybe a Mark Levinston. It's not as well made as an Esoteric was. You had your Wadiyas, which is not as well made as a Wadiya. It's not as well made as a Corel was in those days. These were all competitors trying to get people's money for high end. And the transport here was about $2,000 back then. So that's not cheap. Today's money, that would be almost $4,000 for this transport. And if you think about it, wow, that's a lot of money for a transport. So I'm going to check this out with a Mac transport, the MCT 500. And I'm going to see if a 27-year-old transport is just as good as a brand new transport today. There's not a lot of transports out there to pick from if you're looking for something high end. And what I looked at was two other transport with J Audio Transport, CEC Transport compared to this one. They all look well made. So does the Mac look well made, but as we can see, a lot of it is cosmetic and of course inflationary costs for everything. Now, I don't know if the CD mechanism of the Mac is proprietary to Macintosh. If they bought it off the market from, like, if they're new old stock, which a lot of people use, new old stock lasers and everything. Because this one has, as you can see, ferrite clamps to help clean up any RF that you're getting into it. And this one also has a cord for your AC that is hardwired into the transport. Now, Conrad Johnson did not believe that hardwire the AC cord was a problem with any of their Premier equipment a long time ago. they didn't believe that power cords really made a difference. And basically, I have not heard power cords make a big difference like some people have claimed. In fact, I've heard them make very little to no difference in the production of music. Basically, what I hear that makes a difference is line cleaners. Your AC coming out, put it in something that cleans the AC up before it goes to your electronics. I've heard more of that making a big difference than I have power cords. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who are going to complain and say, I'm absolutely wrong. Well, I haven't heard it myself. So this is something that I guess can be done or can be heard, but at what price point? How much do you want to spend? And how much do you want to keep spending? And how much better does it make it? Does it really make it better, or does it just make it different? There's a difference between making something sound a lot better or just making something sound different to the human ear. So if you think a power cord does the trick for you, fine. If it makes it where you can come up with a lot more information and everything, I have not noticed that. Power conditioners, yes. Power cords, no. So anyway, getting back to this, I wanted to show you because I'm going to do an A/B test with this transport and a brand new Macintosh transport. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, why didn't I go with the CEC, or why didn't I go with J Audio? Well, I'll explain to you why. First of all, CEC is Japanese. There are not too many people that sell it. And J Audio, you basically have to go to whatever, Korea, China, wherever J Audio is being made to get it from them. So there's no dealerships. And if there's no dealerships, how are you going to get this thing serviced if there's a problem? I mean, you can wind up getting something immediately and there could be a problem. You want that infrastructure when you buy something that you can call them up and say, hey, I got a problem. Can I send it back to you? You can fix it. That's what you want. When you buy some of these transports, and I'm not saying they're bad, they could be excellent, but you take the risk that can you get it fixed if something goes wrong? Because we all know something can go wrong with anything you buy. So the only reason I chose the Mac is because Mac's been around for 75 years and they're right here in the United States, right in New York. So all you have to do is keep the box. If anything goes wrong with that transport, if anything goes wrong with the laser mechanism, you can send it right back to Macintosh and they will fix it. End of story. No big hassle. Call them up, say, hey, I had a problem. The thing's under warranty. Pack it up, send it off to them, and they will fix it. What do you do if a CEC or a J's Audio, if something goes wrong with them? Who are you going to find to fix it? Where's there a dealership you can take it to? There's dealerships for Macintosh all over the place. All over the place. You don't have to worry about it. It reminds me of when people talk about Harley-Davidson and like, for example, I like motorcycles. I love the Indian motorcycle. I like the way it looks. I just like everything about the Indian motorcycle. Why didn't I ever buy one? Why did I only buy Harley-Davidson? Well, the reason I bought Harley-Davidson is because of the fact that there's dealerships all over the place. You can get them serviced anywhere. Anyone can get parts for Harley-Davidson. No problem. But for an Indian motorcycle, several years ago, Indian closed up a lot of their dealerships. And Polaris had to wind up buying them out. So when their dealerships got all closed up, where do you take them to get them fixed? Compared to a Harley. If you take a trip with a Harley, just about everybody fixes Harley-Davidson. Everybody can get the parts. So Harley had the infrastructure to make sure that if you buy one of their motorcycles, it will, can be serviced. That's the same way with these. What happens if this tray mechanism here goes bad? Or what if the laser goes bad? Who do you take it to? This Conrad Johnson is made right here in the United States. So no, I'm not one who's going to toot the horn for Macintosh. And I do have Macintosh equipment. I've had Macintosh equipment in the past. No, I think some of their stuff is overly priced. That's for me. Their sound is a Macintosh sound. You have to understand that, just like what you're looking at here. The Conrad Johnson has a Conrad Johnson sound. Jeff Rowland has a Jeff Rowland sound. Mark Levinson has a Mark Levinson sound, and so forth. Your audio research has their particular kind of sound. Do you like it or don't you like it? That's up to the buyer. That's why there's so many manufacturers out there making equipment, because they all have a particular sound. So could I have bought like a Cambridge CD player and just had the, use it as a transport? Yeah, you could buy one, for less than $2,000 and just use that as a transport. But hopefully you're paying the money to get a better transport, a better laser than you would someone that has an all-in-one. An all-in-one has to make compromises. They have to give you something for the laser mechanism. Then they have to give you boards for the laser mechanism, for everything, your power supply. Did they separate it correctly? Then they have to have the DA converter built all in. All-in-one are cheaper, yes, but will they sound as good as separates? And that's something that has to be determined by each audiophile and what they can afford and what they can hear. But the only time I've ever come up with all-in-one CD players sounding excellent, if you went to your higher end CD players, like for example your Wadias. But you don't see a lot of your older CD transports, and you don't see a lot of your older all-in-one or separates come on the market. How many times do you see a Mark Levinson transport come on the market? So here you got your coaxial, you got your balance, and of course you have your optical. I never really used the optical. I always used the coaxial. That's all it has. Back in those days, that's basically all you needed. They didn't have everything like they do today, because remember, this is 27 years old. But the coaxial was very, very good if you had a real nice coaxial cable to hook up to it, like I did with the Kimber Illuminati. Killer cable. It's expensive today to buy Illuminati, but like I said, back then it was cheaper. Anyhow, I thought I would show you the insides of this, show you the insides of the Mac, and I'm going to do an A-B comparison. And it'll be nice to see if the Mac can hold up to this 27-year-old Conrad Johnson. Is the laser mechanism better? I don't know. I'll find out. I'll be able to tell you guys. Is it worth the money that Mac is asking for their MCT 500? I looked on the YouTube and I saw where overseas they were unboxing the MCT 500, and the thing was like $13,000 for that transport overseas. Very, very expensive for Macintosh equipment overseas compared to what we pay here in the United States. So it'd be interesting to see, really, does Mac compete with a 27-year-old transport? That's why I want to show you the internals of this. And as you can see, nothing here is elaborate. You got a power cord that's, mounted right to the chassis. You got, today, when we think about it like a power cord like this, today we would think, oh, that's inferior product. now we need it where we can plug in a power cord so we can change it to change the sound of the item we bought. So will this compete to a Mac? It's going to be interesting to find out, and I definitely will let all of you know, did I find the Mac better than this? Definitely if the Mac is not better, well, I'm not keeping the Mac. It will go back because you have 30-day trial period. And I'll let you know that it could not beat a 27-year-old transport like you're looking at here, the Conrad Johnson. It should beat it because it has a better transport mechanism, I'm sure, than this. It's also front-loaded like this is. It's not a top-loaded. Some people said the Mac wiggles. Well, so does the Conrad Johnson wiggle. Like I said, it's just plastic. The Mac is supposed to be made out of aluminum. I'll find out. I'll let you guys know. There'll be an update. And so you'll just have to wait for that video to come out when I get that transport in. I'm very, very interested to see, is this transport, after 27 years, can it be beat? Is it that outdated? Or no, it's not that outdated. We will soon find out. So until next time, this is the Empirical Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to find out, is an MCT 500 better than a 27-year-old Conrad Johnson CD transport? Stay tuned for that.